Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest coming out of the UK, David Roche. He's a coach and mentor. He's got a fair extensive amount of experience helping clients succeed in their business, in their careers, and as entrepreneurs. I'm really happy to have him on the show. He's got tons of wisdom to share with the audience. So, David, welcome.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, introduce yourself, how you got started briefly, and I'm excited to dive into the questions.
Sure. As you say, I'm a coach and mentor of about 5 years standing, having had 30 years of senior boardroom experience. And really, as I move through now from being a CEO earlier to being more of a chair and non-exec director now, when you look back at your own career, you do see moments where things could have been made a lot easier if you'd had the necessary support. And I got involved in coaching and mentoring actually to become a better non-exec director and chair because I felt that the skills that you learn as a coach of challenging, supporting, listening, asking good questions were really good. And the transition from being an exec director to a non-exec is very different. As I was told at the time, noses in, fingers out was the expression I was given as being a non-exec director of the details. So I became more and more interested. I've been a mentor unofficially for years, but to provide coaching and mentoring and specifically concentrating on first-time CEOs. When I went up through the ladder, the executive ladder, in a reasonably normal way, and then ended up my first-time CEO role, and this was back in the mid 2000s, was with Borders, the American book chain, which is sadly no more now, but it was thriving at the time. And I was CEO of the European operation for Borders. And my bosses were in Ann Arbor in Michigan and had certain assumptions about the UK market, which underplayed the differences between the US market and the UK market. And so I learned very quickly or had to learn very quickly how to manage these bosses from a distance and to make sure that the decisions that were made for the industry, for the business, were appropriate for the UK market. And I was lucky enough to be put in touch.
Yeah, really interesting introduction. And so moving on, and so one talk about is first-time CEOs. What are the most common challenges that first-time CEOs encounter, and how can they effectively overcome them?
The statistics are frightening in that I think there's widely reported figures of 2 out of every 5 new CEOs fail and are exited out of their position in the first 18 months, which seems to be an endorsement of the Peter principle, which says that everyone's promoted until they reach the point of incompetence. And as a coach and mentor, I don't believe that is necessarily the case. I think the first time CEO is particularly acute in terms of a change, in that it's completely, there's no way you can have had experience of overarching responsibility for everything. And for the first time, you're probably reporting into multiple bosses as your board, as opposed to a single boss. So it's a very different job. And absolute, I believe passionately that first time CEOs should be assigned an independent coach or mentor because it is so different. The failure rate, McKinsey estimated that $1 trillion is lost every year by Standard and Poor's 1,500 companies owing to poor transitions for CEOs and C-suite appointees. And within those transitions, it tends to be the relationships, the failure to build up the key relationships, both within the company, managing upwards with your senior leadership team and across the organization, and outside the company with your partners, investors, and so on. And without the support of a coach and mentor, it's a very lonely job to suddenly become a CEO and not necessarily understand why your relationships aren't working. And as a coach, often I find that it's just say a CEO and a chair are often just talking in a different language. And as the coach, I help as an adapter, if you like, to try and say what you're saying is this, what they're hearing is something completely different, and how those relationships work is what I put in my new book. It's all about the relationship. I guess the one good thing about that is it's future proof, and as AI moves in, the relationships across humans will still be ever so critical.
Yeah, I was reading about the Peter principle the other day, and it really resonated with what is going on in U.S. corporations and government. It's just you see.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
interesting,
I think that's an interesting point within that, in the old model. Yeah, I think the old.
what's interesting is that talking about a lot of the audience they suffer from imposter syndrome. And how prevalent is imposter syndrome among new CEOs, and what strategies do you recommend for overcoming it?
8 out of 10 leaders is the sort of figure that most people stab at, suffer doubts, and I'd be more worried sometimes about the 2 out of 10 who don't suffer any doubts. We had a prime minister for 49 days, Liz Truss, who jumped in, had no doubt about her ability to change things, and nearly crashed the economy within 49 days. So I think I think most people suffer from imposter syndrome. I think the having the assistance to work your way through it is really critical, because part of the reason the transition is so badly handled is everyone focuses on the appointment. If we've got the right person to be appointed to the job, the transition and what's behind that is often complicated by the fact that the incoming CEO covers himself in an armor that sort of says, look, I am assured, I'm confident, I have all the answers, blah, 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 which has two effects. One, it actually is a barrier for people to sit there. This person doesn't want any help. I better not ask any questions. I better not offer any advice. They're not welcome it. And so you compound that problem of one, not getting involved in building those relationships that you need, and two, not having the community aspect of strategizing as a team, etc. I think it's very prevalent, and it's really something that a coach and mentor can deal with very effectively and quite easily, because these people they've already been appointed to the job, so they're good enough to do it. They prove them that. It's just a question of. There was one CEO who said, "I wish I'd been given by the board who appointed me a one pager which gave all the reasons why they appointed me. And I could have that in my drawer. And every day, when I had any doubts, I could look at that piece of paper and go, that's why they appointed me, because I have the experience in this, because I've had success in that, because I have talent in this," and remind themselves. But having doubts and having nerves is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just being able to have them, be able to control them when it matters.
Yeah, the kind of the question is, you're a coach and mentor, and why do you believe that coaching and mentoring should be compulsory for new CEOs, and what unique benefits do they provide?
Because I think it should be compulsory, because why would you not give the new incoming CEO every opportunity to succeed? The board who appoint the CEO want them to succeed. The incoming CEO with the imposter syndrome sitting there going, hang on, they're just checking me out to see if they made the right appointment. Yeah, of course they are. And one of the number one risks discussed by the board will be new CEO. But apart from maybe one of the team that reports into them who probably thinks they should have got the job instead of the new CEO, it's in everyone's interest that they pass. And a coach and mentor, a mentor can just make some decision making easier, and make the most obvious mistakes less likely to happen, because they probably covered similar sort of areas before. The coach is all about confidence, and actually pulling out the best of the person who requires the coaching. And one of the misnomers is that, particularly the first time CEO, is hang on, if I get a coach that shows I'm weak and I need help. Whereas actually, if you look at the greatest sportsmen, the greatest of all time at what they do, they all understand they need someone in their corner. They need unconditional support, and we all need it. And people have different ways of expressing themselves. Personally, I think out loud, so talking things through is really helpful. With a coach, that's safe. Sometimes talking things through that are slightly more off the wall or wild with your boss or a board might be deemed less wise at an early point in your board career. So it's as an insurance policy, if you like, having a coach and mentor is just yet another level of support that you wouldn't go into a company without having directors insurance against personal directors insurance against certain things happening to the company. And this is just a similar thing. And it's just it just makes that 2 out of 5 less likely to happen.
Really fascinating discussion. I really enjoyed talking with you. How can people find you and check out your work and follow you?
Okay. My new book is called Become a, well, it's probably backwards there, but it's Become a Successful First Time CEO. And it's available on Amazon. And as I say, it's more of a, because it's about relationships, there's no right or wrong answer particularly. So it's more of a how-to book than a why-to book than a how-to book, as my editor discussed it. But it's full of anecdotes and stories from CEOs. And one early reader, CEO, was kind enough to say, not many business books can pull off being a page turner, but this book really does it. So it's very accessible and it's not full of bullet points on how to do things. But it, like coaching, it actually jogs memories and makes connections that help solve problems. My coaching business is called Grey Area Coaching. Grey with Grey in the UK way of spelling grey. And you can have a look at my website there, which is www.greyareacoaching.com. Grey Area Coaching, all one word.
Awesome. And for the audience, we'll put all the links in there, and we want to thank
Thanks.
David for coming on, and thanks so much for sharing your experience and wisdom.
Thanks, Christopher. That's been great.